Benny pedaled his bike with all his might as he climbed the next hill. The view opened before him, and he felt that blissful moment when gravity takes the brunt of the work, and he can only steer the bike down the winding descent that will take him out of the Berkshires. After these weeks of climbing north through the picturesque mountain ranges of New York, Vermont, and Massachusetts, the road back will be relatively easy. But he feared that the greater difficulty would be meeting his fiancée upon his return. In fact, she was his ex-fiancée. It's not that she had no reason to doubt the change in marital status. After all, she was the one who technically ended the relationship. However, he was the one who left her on what was supposed to be a week-long bicycle tour from Montauk to Woodstock. This was the last trip before their wedding, which was to take place this weekend. He did not know what the future held for him, but he was sure that the wedding would not take place in the near future. Nobody even knew where he was. He preferred it that way. The trip began on the first day after the end of the school year. Benny and Lynn were teachers and decided that a week of fun and beautiful scenery was just the thing. 3 other colleagues were supposed to join them, but due to a death in the family, 2 of their friends, a married couple, canceled the trip. Thus, Donnie Kohler found himself in the role of the notorious odd man. Benny and Lynn were experienced racers. They were both avid triathletes, so the rides ranging from 10 miles to hundreds of miles that Benny prepared for as part of his first Ironman in the previous year were perceived calmly by them. Donnie was also an experienced cyclist, but he preferred weekly rides through Manhattan parks to long rides on country roads. However, all 3 found the idea of traveling from Long Island to Woodstock exciting, and they set off from Montauk, on the eastern tip of the island, in high spirits. They ended the first day on Fire Island, well ahead of the escort vehicles. The terrain on the island was relatively flat, especially along the route prepared for them along the coast. Travel was easy, and they were able to check into their hotel and have dinner before most of the other tour members arrived. That evening, Benny and Lynn made love, even though Donnie teased them about how it would be unfair to leave him without the evening's leisure activities. The next morning, Donnie continued the banter, and Lynn began to respond with one-liners as Donnie's teasing became more and more sexually innuendo-laden. On the second day, when they stopped for lunch at Coney Island, things got out of control, and when Benny spoke to stop everything before it went too far, he was met with a barrage of ridicule for ruining the sport. They wouldn't let up as they mounted their bikes, hooting and cackling as they raced away while he went through his pre-ride ritual and adjusted the seat. He knew he would catch up with them. That day, it was a 40-mile stretch, over a bridge and along bike paths that led south around the tip of Manhattan and then zigzagged north along the Hudson. However, his wounded pride did not allow him to rush and crave their company. He didn't approve of his future wife flirting so aggressively, nor of his supposed friend hitting on her so openly. Of course, they both said that it was all a joke and that Benny shouldn't be so thin-skinned, but in reality, it didn't look very innocent. He needed time to think about it, and decided that he might be able to glean something from their reactions when he caught up with them. It was easy to catch up with them. Donnie's bike tire blew out, and he fell. He was fiddling with the backup camera when Benny caught up with him, but in the process, he injured his arm and cut his knee. Ironically, the escort vehicles had a hard time reaching them, and they were stuck in the center of the largest city in the country. Lynn administered first aid while Benny worked on the bike. The front rim is a little bent, but you can ride on it. The problem is that your camera is the wrong size. Is this the only spare? No, but the second one is the same size. So wrong. You need to clean your knee and maybe get it checked. Can you go? Benny put him on his bike and sent him off with Lynn, while he was left waiting with Donnie's damaged bike. He called for support vehicles, and they informed Benny that there had been an accident involving several cyclists on the Brooklyn side of the bridge. He'll have to wait. He checked on his phone for the location of the local bike shop and began steering the lame bike in that direction. An hour later, he found a store. There were a lot of people. He selected a new rim, found a suitable handset, and pulled out his phone to call Lynn while he waited for the technician. Lynn texted him to say Donnie had done well on the trip, and they had already stopped to check on his cuts, clean him up, and bandage him. They were heading to a hotel in Westchester. Benny waited less than patiently. He even offered to pay for the use of the editing bench when it was available. Another 45 minutes passed before he got on his bike. The bike wasn't worth the wait. It sucked. The frame was too small, the seat was uncomfortable, and the gears were not set up properly for off-road riding. No wonder he's always behind. His bike is crap, Benny thought, as he lumbered back to the path through New York City rush hour. He felt his phone buzz and stopped at a traffic light to check it. At the hotel. Call me. He called. Hello, sweetie? Are you okay? No. Baby, I'm so sorry you're stuck in this. By the way, Donnie is fine. I'm just sorry I'm stuck with this. What the hell was that dinner? Oh, baby, stop worrying. Next week you will be mine, all mine, and I will be all yours. So only next week. I thought that engagement meant that we had already promised to be the only and exclusive for each other. Everything is mine. Everything is yours. Just us. Baby, we haven't said yes yet. Benny didn't like the sound of that. Everything was heading towards something bad. He unzipped her shirt and felt for her wedding ring. The only problem was that it didn't fit well under tight cycling gloves. So when they drove, she put the ring on the chain he wore around his neck. The thing is, Benny, you know I have pre-wedding jitters. It kept getting worse. Her worries were due to the fact that she did not know whether she could limit herself to one man for the rest of her days. And you guys are walking around with bumps in your Lycra bike shorts. This couldn't happen. This simply couldn't happen. I want to have one last fling. Here it is. Crap. Today, Donnie and I will stay at the hotel for the night. We will leave your bike in our room. Tomorrow morning, Donnie and I will have breakfast in our room, so I'll spend my last night without commitment. After breakfast, we will come to your room and discuss everything. Then Donnie will pick up his bike and we can all continue as before. She went on to talk about how they regretted humiliating me at dinner, but it was actually a good thing because it solved her nerve problem. The bike tube might look like a rig, but it wasn't. Donnie got hurt, and he's grateful to you for taking care of the problem. He was also very grateful that he would be the guy for my latest fling and would never tell anyone or do anything that would affect you. Blah, blah, blah. Cute? Benny, answer me. Will you do it? I'll do what? Do you love me enough to let me do this? Oh, this hurts. Lynn just cut out Benny's heart. But he was an Iron Man. He swam a mile in open water, biked 100 miles, and last summer ran a marathon in the Mexican sun. That's all he wanted to show her. Iron Man. Of course, Lynn, let's have your own affair. Have fun today. Say hi to Donnie. He hung up, turned off his phone, and went back to the bike shop. The taxi driver took him to the hotel. He grabbed the room key from the counter and then took Donnie's bike to his room. Everything was as she said. The bicycle was waiting for him in the room along with a backpack which was thrown by the escort car. He ordered dinner to his room, and while he waited, he placed the bent rim on Donnie's bike with the tube deflated. He threw away the new one he bought. It's my right to throw it away. I paid for it. He didn't sleep a wink. She asked me if I loved her enough to let her do this. I loved her enough to let her follow her dream. Now she can chase it forever. He rolled out his bike and left his bag at the escort car with a note for the tour operators. Your tour is great, but I decided to break away from the peloton and do a longer ride. Hold on to my gear, I'll pick it up when I get home. Benny attached a luggage rack to his bike, into which he put a minimum of things. He had a bank card, 10 weeks of summer before he started work, a top-of-the-line bicycle, and a 24-year-old body. There were many open roads ahead and nothing could hold him back. The planned trip split the remaining distance to Woodstock over 2 days. Benny tried his best, and even with the extra weight of the trunk, he made it into one. If he were somewhere else doing anything else, the heartache of losing his fiancée over a one-night stand would have killed him. But on his bike, he concentrated on riding, only while driving. The weather was beautiful, The roads were quiet midweek, and he was speeding through the lower Hudson Valley. His body was like a furnace, forcing his legs to work harder and faster. He ate his lunch, filled his water bottles, and moved on. He reached Woodstock and stopped for dinner. As he walked out of the diner, Benny finally remembered Lynn. He sat down in the shade of a majestic old oak tree and turned on the phone. He immediately buzzed. Dozens of SMS and phone messages poured in, followed by emails and requests to meet. He started reading, beginning with, "Where are you?" and ending with frantic declarations of love and concern that easily reached the level of hysteria. He replied, "Don't worry, I'm fine. Have a nice trip." Immediately the phone rang. He rejected the call and sent a reply message. "I don't want to talk. I need to go. Please don't call." He barely had time to put on his helmet when the phone buzzed again. "Don't shut me out. I needed this night. But now I'm ready for you. Please call. You needed this night. I need to go. Everything is different now. I asked you to love me enough to just let it go. I loved it. I loved you enough to let you be happy and have what you want. I loved you enough to let it go. I loved you enough to just let it go. Oh my God, you're in Woodstock. Damn, Donnie is driving so slow I'll never catch you. Wait there. I'll get an escort car and we can talk. I'll make it up to you. I had no idea you were so... You're going to take this hard. We'll get through this." "I don't take it hard. There's no need to make amends. It was a choice. You chose, then I chose. There's nothing left to deal with. Don't rush to Woodstock. I won't be here. Good night." He put on his gloves and rode north. Damn mobile GPS. They installed tracking apps on their phones. He decided to keep the GPS, but only turn on the phone for short periods. He drove another 2 hours and stopped at a hotel. Lynn was furious. It was the most terrible day of her life. What was she thinking when she let Donnie talk her into one last fling? He really played on her insecurities. The sex wasn't bad, but he wasn't Benny. And Donnie was also a whiner. Oh, how he got on her nerves, and now she had him all to herself. And he didn't know how to ride in a saddle. The day is almost over, but they have only just begun. Damn it, Benny. Why couldn't you understand and be cool? And then you left Donnie's bike in a mess. She remembered how her stomach dropped when she walked into Benny's room. The bed was made. It was so like Benny to make the bed, even if the maids were going to completely dismantle it later. The bed was restored to its original condition, and Donnie's bicycle was in yesterday's crappy condition. Benny is all about it. Leave everything as you found it. He found a hotel room in pristine condition and left it in its original condition. He took the bike in a faulty condition and left it in a faulty condition. The irony of the situation was that when he first asked her out, she had just left a guy who was a whiny, inconsiderate slob with mediocre skills in bed. Now she was suffering from the increasingly annoying Donnie. She knew Benny's phone was switched off. If he wanted to be cool, he would have waited for her. But he didn't take it well, so he'll make her work hard to get back to him. He didn't want to see her or talk to her. They ended up stopping at a bike store, and Lynn texted and called all morning while they waited for a new wheel for Donnie's bike. Although she knew there would be no response, she was sure that as soon as he turned it on, messages from her would start pouring in. And yet, with no GPS signal, she felt more and more isolated. She thought back on the day and wondered if Donnie had felt the same emptiness when they sat down to lunch. She imagined he felt just as lonely and abandoned when they left him with his broken bike. They needed to take Donnie somewhere where the cuts and scrapes could be treated, but they should get back to Benny. Then there was a hotel. She remembered the sweet anticipation of being with a new man for the last time before marriage. Donnie looked so good and was absolutely adorable. He treated her to wine and dinner, took her to her room, and seduced her. Oh, it felt so good. He was affectionate and a good kisser. He had a gentle touch. This night didn't go at all as she had planned, and Benny's disappearance added to the disappointment. She couldn't leave Donnie alone, but she was tempted to call an escort car to come pick them up. Every time she stopped to wait, she texted Benny. She wrote during lunch. Nothing. When he finally responded after dinner, she was amazed at how much he had gotten done. She was alarmed by the messaging. Her fears were confirmed. He did not take the news well. Dinner was a waste. Despite her body's need to recharge, she simply picked at her plate. Donnie knew better than to disturb her. He left her to sulk and they slept in separate rooms. She had difficulty falling asleep. Benny couldn't get out of her head. Her wedding never left her mind. Visions of future children, what could have been, surfaced and quickly disappeared. The next morning, she got up early and sent Donnie a message. "You'll be okay with the group today. I have to try and find Benny. I'm going to Woodstock." She also left a message for Benny. "Please don't go. I need you. Wait in Woodstock." Benny's phone was turned off. He didn't want to be tracked. He didn't want to talk. He didn't want to text. He wanted to go. When Lynn got to Woodstock the next day, Benny was gone. In fact, he was already well outside of Albany and heading north. Even though she was sure his phone was off, she spent the rest of the day calling and texting. Sleep eluded her again, and the next day, she took the bus back to Montauk alone, anxious and exhausted. Lynn spent the next few days leaving Benny every message she could. She spent her nights tossing and turning and brooding over her regrets and worries. She was most worried about Benny. He was strong and skilled, but he was alone. What if his bike breaks down like Donnie's? What if he falls? What if he gets hit by a car? Of course, he could fix his bike himself and was a careful rider, but accidents could happen, and there was no escort car. No one but her even knew he was there, and she had no idea where exactly he was going. Meanwhile, Benny pedaled feverishly every day. He turned east, skirting the northern shores of Lake Champlain, and entered Vermont. He had no problem sleeping or anything else. Vermont was full of amazing things to do, both on and off the bike, and he even found time to rent a mountain bike in Killington and hit the ski slopes he had come to enjoy on many of his winter excursions. His mind was clear when he sent Lynn a letter during the second week of the trip. "I love you, and I always will, but last week you showed a side of yourself that I never knew existed. I can't share my wife. I didn't think you were capable of being unfaithful as a bride, and now I can't imagine how you will remain faithful as a wife. I know I told you to go ahead and do what you want, but the way you told me, it left me with no choice. You've made your decision. I don't hate you for this. I was angry, but I accepted it. I'm not going to completely break up with you over this, but I think it's safe to say that our relationship should be downgraded to something less exclusive. I think it would be in everyone's best interest to cancel or at least postpone the wedding indefinitely. On the other hand, I still haven't completely moved out of my apartment and may extend my lease. I'll let you know when I come to pick up my things from our house. Sorry, I think not calling it our home will take some getting used to. You can be there when I stop by if you want, or you can leave if you don't feel comfortable seeing me. At least I won't have to ask you to return the ring. I still have it. With love, Benny P.S. I'll let my mom know so she can alert our portion of the guest list. This will save your mother from unnecessary hassle. P.S.S. I won't tell anyone why we are canceling everything. You don't deserve this. However, I will say that it was your decision. I don't deserve to take the blame either." Benny's letter was poison to Lynn. She cried until she could muster the strength to call her mother. Of course, her mother needed an explanation, and it was difficult to give. They say the truth hurts. Lynn realized it was true. "Lynn, you really screwed up. Benny is right, and smart. All this suggests that you are not ready for marriage. But Mom, I'm ready. I love Benny and can't wait to start building our life together. I just wanted one more time." "Stop it, Lynn. This is an excuse. Your time for one more time was over when you said yes and allowed him to place the ring on your left hand. Benny was absolutely right to cancel the offer and wait. I admire his patience because he didn't close the door completely. I'll call and cancel everything. But we lost a lot of money, so you will be responsible for returning our deposits." "Mom, you only think about the wedding, and here I am falling apart." "Okay, I'll return your deposits. What should I do with Benny now?" "I don't know. Only you know what you want, and only you can decide what to do. Sorry, Lynn, but it's out of my control. If you decide you still want Benny, then this time you'll have to go after him. First, you have to pull yourself together. Then you have to decide what you want. If this is life with Benny, you'll have to earn his trust again. Then you will have to woo him and convince him that he will have a safe life with you. You'll have to convince him that he won't find out that you're cheating on him again, or that he'll have to keep an eye on you. Honey, you will have a hard time winning him back and getting him to agree to the wedding again. And Lynn, don't screw it up. Second chances are rare, but no one has heard of a third chance. Lynn turned off the phone and spent the night thinking about her actions over the past week. She was in pain, but she understood that this pain was her own fault. She wrote to Benny, "I need to talk to you. I need to tell you that I'm sorry. Face to face. I love you, Benny. Let me know where you are, and I'll come to you. Please, Benny, today was too hard without you. I can't be without you for the rest of my life." Benny had gotten into the habit of turning on his phone first thing in the morning and right after dinner. After reading the message, he felt a pit growing in his stomach. He felt his heart break again. Over the past 2 weeks, he had managed to push her out of his mind. He rode doggedly every day except one. He didn't have a full day of rest, but that day, he rode slowly and deliberately. It was the day they were supposed to get married. "Lynn, look at this through my eyes. Now, I'll always see you with Donnie. I'm going south. Give me a day to get my head together, and I'll turn on the phone. You can find me on the GPS." They each spent the day lost in their own thoughts, remembering each other and their good times, and reflecting on the events that brought their relationship to the brink of death. She cried bitter tears, and he channeled his energy into the bicycle. She barely slept, and he fell exhausted on the bed in his hotel room. She woke up early and immediately launched the GPS app to track his phone. Nothing. She showered, got dressed, didn't put on makeup because she knew tears would ruin everything, and drove north to close the distance between them, wherever he was. Her mother was with her. Her bike was on the rack in the back. Benny also got up early, showered, shaved, and went downstairs from the hotel room for breakfast. After checking out his gear, he took out his phone and turned it on. He knew Lynn would see him as soon as the GPS loaded. He immediately received a signal that a message had arrived. In fact, it arrived an hour earlier. "Baby, I love you. I'm on my way. I'm halfway there. I'm so sorry, Benny. I really am." He drove off. She saw the dot as soon as it appeared in the GPS app on her phone, which was securely mounted in a holder on her dashboard. Her mother was driving. She didn't want to take any chances, and if he didn't stop to talk, she planned to catch up with him on her bike and argue her case while they rode. "He doesn't turn off the phone! Mom, the dot remains on the screen." "It's already a start, Lynn. At least he doesn't close the door." "Where is he?" "It's still near the Massachusetts border, but to the east of us. We can turn east on Highway 84. Looks like he's on Highway 7. We should catch him north of Danbury." When they turned off the road, they found themselves directly in front of the place where, judging by the point, he was steadily moving. Usually, she had no chance of staying close to his bike if he didn't want her to. He was driving too hard. But for a long trip, he had to carry several bags, which meant weight. She also knew that his legs were hardened but tired. Her feet will be fresh. She wasn't overweight, and she was motivated. He crested the hill in the distance and accelerated down the descent. She tried to wave at him, but he wouldn't stop. She got on her bike and was just about to join him when he rushed past, but before she could put her feet on the pedals, he braked and turned into the next parking lot. She pulled up next to him, and her mom started the car, keeping just enough distance that they could have privacy, but staying close in case she was needed. She knew Benny wouldn't physically harm her daughter, but if Lynn didn't get the answer she wanted, there was no telling how she might react. Lynn watched as her daughter climbed off her bike and joined Benny, who was sitting on the shady lawn next to the parking lot. "Well, did you have a good ride?" He hadn't looked her in the eye yet. She missed it. One of his sweetest habits was to look straight into the eyes of everyone he spoke to. This hypnotized his students to the point that they would eat out of his hands. This encouraged adults to follow him and made him a natural leader. He charmed women when he was single, to such an extent that after dinner and conversation, any woman was ready to climb into his bed. And if it was a woman he really cared about, they felt like he was crawling right into their minds and forcing them to love him. It made Lynn melt. When he finally turned to look her in the eyes, she fell apart. Everything started out really well. Then it sucked the worst. Then I took a break from my problems and the solitude. Well, it was wonderful. She knew he would, but it pained her to hear that he was better off alone, especially since he was talking about the days leading up to what was to be their wedding. Benny, I'm so sorry. I know it's not enough, but I'm sorry. I somehow saw that you weren't against me having one last fling. I know I shouldn't have done this, and I know you're not that kind of guy, but I started to panic. I mean, I love you. I love you too much for words. You have a strange way of showing it. I know. I deserve everything you say. I was just caught up in the moment. In my excitement, I perceived the forever with you part as limiting rather than joyful. I don't really feel that way, Benny. Eternity is what I want. Your photo should be in the dictionary under the definition of forever. You are my eternity. I was stupid to overlook this. It cost me my wedding day. It cost me you. Benny leaned back on the grass. He imagined a small cloud floating slowly over Lynn's head, and then imagined it darkening and opening, unleashing a fury of rain and lightning onto the 2-foot square plot of land occupied by his ex-fiancée. Lynn, I don't know what you want to hear, but everything changed when you slept with Donnie. I still love you. That hasn't gone away. But now there is pain that balances this love. I just don't know how to go back to the way things were. It's obvious that you're not ready for an exclusive, lifelong relationship. You still have questions I can't answer and an itch I can't scratch. How can I trust that we will be compatible as a married couple? Benny, it's not like that. I was completely ready to settle down for life. I took everything I told you about marriage seriously. I really meant it. And then I found myself alone with Donnie, and it was as if I had entered another world or a parallel universe. I know it was stupid to just tell you I was going to do it and expect you to accept it. I knew it sounded like an order and left you no choice. I also knew that if I asked your permission, you would say hell no. But something told me that you loved me enough to let me do this. Why did I listen to this something more than to the voice that shouted, "It's because he loves you so much, you shouldn't do this"? I'll never know. This won't happen again, Benny. Never. It was so stupid, so blind. I just can't explain what came over me. I know, Benny answered, but his gaze was directed somewhere to the side. Lynn felt lost. A world where Benny didn't look you in the eye when he talked to you was a completely different world than the one she'd ever known. And this was not the world she wanted to get to know better. Lynn, that's why we couldn't get married and can't be engaged now. You can't explain it. And until you can, I'll never know when it might happen again. This is not a very good foundation for a lifetime exclusive partnership. Tears flowed naturally, but she cried silently. She was the one who caused this mess, not Benny. She had a chance to explain everything, but even to herself it sounded superficial. He deserved his chance to speak too. What would happen in the future if you went to that parallel universe where you could text me and run away with Mr. Right now? I didn't even have time to object. You threw my love into the dirt with one phrase, damn it. So our relationship is a partnership where one of us keeps the fire in the house and the other plays. This is not a partnership. And remember, I'm a guy. You took me by surprise. If I were to end my marriage now instead of running away from it, you would take half of my assets, give me alimony, and get full custody of the children. I would pay child support until they went to college. Family courts are on the woman's side. And yet you were the one who started the affair and broke my heart. You end up with hot sex, maybe a new lover, a house, kids, and all the money. I will live on a subsistence level. I won't be able to afford a good dinner, so I'll have to forget about my mistresses. And every weekend I'll take the children out of the house I scraped together the down payment to buy. Then I'd get my 2 days of visitation while you and your new lover are out on the town, thanks to my monthly child support check. Cool idea, right? And those children whom I will see 2 days out of every 14, they will grow up surrounded by their other dad, who will spend all his time with them, watch their first little league hit, and buy them the perfect gifts because he is with them 12 out of 14 days and knows them better than I do. Yes, this future looks bright to me, partner. So here it is. We didn't get married. We are no longer engaged, but this is not the end. I still love you, so you have some work to do, but we are no longer an exclusive couple. You know what I'm like. And obviously your little attempt let us both know that you're still curious about what other guys are like. Go and find out. If you want to keep dating me, I'm all for it. It's up to you to decide how long we will meet. This little adventure puts the work of courtship and relationship building in your hands. Just understand that while you're looking, I am too. I won't have an open marriage later, so get it out of my head now. Date, have sex, experiment, find yourself, whatever. Just remember that I won't keep the house on fire. You can't just come back to my house and pick up where you left off. It was Lynn's turn to be confused. On the one hand, Benny wasn't done with her. He left the door very wide open. On the other hand, he made it clear that she would have to win him back and that she would compete again. Benny was a find, so the competition will be fierce. She remembered a couple of years ago when they started dating. There were always rumors about him at school. Getting a date with Benny was a great success. He had a reputation as an old-school gentleman. He held doors open, stood up when a lady approached the table. He had the essence of a good guy. He was clean-shaven, well-groomed, smart, had excellent instincts, and the ability to communicate with people. He wasn't rich, but he always had enough money to pay for dates and pick them up in his own car. He looked good too, and, being an active triathlete, was very strong and fit. They didn't start dating until late in their senior year when they were both hired at the same school the following year. She began training with him, and by the summer, she was already participating in her own triathlon competitions, albeit over shorter distances than Benny. They both loved cycling and often rode together. Their sex life was a transcendental fantasy world of sensual love. While neither of them was against adventure in bed, they were both having too much fun in their long, slow, deliciously vanilla love life to need anything else. I will never succumb to this parallel universe again. I know it's easier for me to say than for you to believe, so I'll prove it to you. I don't know how I'll demonstrate this, but I'm going to win back your trust. First, I will relieve you of any reason to worry about a possible divorce. I'll sign a contract right now if you want. That will secure your finances. I know that after saving your coaching money for the past 3 years, you are ready to buy a house, so buy it. Even if we get married and it becomes our home, it will always be your home. Your salary, pension, investments, and bank accounts are also yours. Even the joint accounts we open to run our household will never be more than half mine if you divorce me. I said, if you get divorced, because if I get you back, I will never let you go, much less file for divorce. What about children? I will not accept any world in which you are less than 50% involved in raising our children. If you divorce me, I will buy a house next door, because you will be waiting for more than every weekend and alternating holidays. Oh, and if you decide you want something more than vanilla in bed, I'll be happy to help. I like our vanilla love life, but if you want to change it up from time to time, just say so. This doesn't include others, so forget about threesomes and orgies. Just you and me in our bed, baby. Well, maybe our children, from time to time, but no other lovers. So what about an open marriage? No problem. You are my Mr. Right now. You are also my Mr. Right. You are my one and only Mr. Benny, and I will not rest until you and I are married and living in our home. Lynn stood up and waved to her mom. I need to go and finish, Mom. I need to pick up my car in Montauk, so I'll be a few days late. When I stop in the evening, I'll call you and tell you everything, but I'm moving home for a while. See you in a few days. She walked over to her bike and took the helmet from the seat. She began to strap it on, and turned to Benny. So we started the trip together. But along the way, we lost our way. Maybe we can finish it together? I don't know, Lynn. It is too early. I still feel insecure. Cool cookies, Benny. I guess part of your deal was that I decide when we will date. Well, baby, that's the way it is, and I keep your promise. Our first date after getting engaged culminates with the last date we had as bride and groom. That means this trip. Now I expect you to take me home safe and sound and walk me to the door. Are you going to be a gentleman or what? She smiled at him, and in an instant she got on her bike and took off down the road. He watched her rush away, as if daring him to come and get her. He heard Lynn's mom pull up next to him in her car. Are you okay, Benny? No, not really. She screwed up big time, Benny. She knows it. Benny just nodded in agreement. If I were you, it would be difficult for me to come to terms with this. Right now, it's a tough choice whether you follow her or go in another direction, isn't it? Yes, ma'am, it is. She knew you wouldn't go after her right away, Benny. She expected you to wait and watch. They did just that. They watched her pedal along the long, flat road. The road went along the valley along the stream. At this point, they could see far. Benny, I wouldn't blame you if you went the other way. I hope you won't do this, because I will be glad if you become my son-in-law. So let me give you a couple of pieces of food for thought. Actually, it wasn't Lynn. I don't know where it came from, but I know that she loves you, and you will never see it again. I'm so sure of this that if you take her back, marry her, and she cheats on you, I will hire and pay for the most brutal divorce lawyer in the state. By the way, I know her. This is my cousin Lucille. This made Benny grin. Moreover, I will hire her to draw up an ironclad marriage contract for you, to which I will be a party. I will become a party to it, because I will back up my guarantees with part of this contract, and Lucille, just in case, will be obliged to represent you. Bernie watched Lynn thoughtfully as she approached the foot of a distant hill. You also have to ask yourself, will you be better off without her? No matter how terrible her actions were, are they so bad that your life will be better if she is gone? Lynn was already a tiny figure, rising up the next hill in the distance. And the last thing, as long as you are together, she will be obliged to you, regardless of whether you remind her about this day directly or not. Throw a tiny wedding ceremony. Hell, run away. So she'll remember how screwed she is every time she sees pictures of her small, non-church, no bridesmaids, no big white dress wedding. She will remember what she missed. Still, I don't want to hurt her. Just because she crashed my parade doesn't mean I want to ruin her dreams. Oh, you don't need to destroy anything. She believes she has already done it. At this point, she'll be thrilled if you two just show up to court one day in jeans and t-shirts. Now she perceives this as losing you. You will not destroy, you will become a hero. However, they watched her climb to the top of the hill. She will also know that she owes you. She will bend over backwards to prove that she loves you and only you. She will do anything to prove how wonderful she thinks you are. You'll have the food you love, sex whenever you like and as often as you like, and best of all, you'll have the remote control. He laughed a little more, then turned to her. How do you know? I'm her mother. I'm just like her. I know how I would feel if I lost you. Don't be surprised if you don't take her back, then I'll come and call. You are so hot. She laughed at her own joke. And then she looked at him seriously. You know, you will have a free pass from the prison card. He looked at her incredulously. It was his own mother-in-law who told him that he could spend the night with another woman with impunity. At this thought, her eyes flashed fiercely. You know that I will never be able to use this. I know. She charmed him towards her daughter. Her reasoning was sound and logical, but it didn't quite make up for the Donnie-sized hole he still felt in his heart, and her teasing deserved retribution. But if I use the free pass, my beautiful mother-in-law will be the first person I call. His smile was mischievous and matched her teasing. He got on his bike as Lynn disappeared over the next hill. You better hurry up. She's running away. No, I'm not going to chase her. They've been chasing her all her life. I, for one, have had enough. I already told her that I would be there, but I had already finished courtship. Now it's her turn. She moved forward without me in many ways. She will have to learn to look over her shoulder and, for a change, catch something behind her. Won't you follow her? Of course, for a while. But instead of taking Highway 7 all the way south, I'll take some more scenic roads. If she's not careful, she'll chase the GPS point instead of riding with me. You certainly aren't going to make it easy for her, are you? No. I feel that there is a fairly high probability that you will not become my son-in-law anytime soon. Right. He pedaled. She watched him drive down the same road her daughter had been driving down a few minutes earlier. Only when she was racing, he was a little slower and very stable. Where her daughter slowed and struggled up the distant hill, Benny maintained the pace. She almost called her daughter to warn her to slow down and wait for Benny, but it seemed wrong to her to warn about this. Her daughter treated her fiancé shamefully. She had to understand that marriage is not a series of sprints like Lynn's. It requires a strong, steady, omnipresent tempo like Benny's. It required teamwork and partnership limited to only 2 people. He handled this bike beautifully, even with the added weight of loaded racks. She hoped he would catch up with Lynn, and for a second, she imagined Benny would live up to his joke and take advantage of the free pass with her. So much time had passed since her husband died that she could have gotten lost in a late-night game. No! She emerged from her reverie. It belongs to Lynn. Her eyes were still sparkling with the what-ifs as he walked to the top of the hill. Then she dreamed of a beautiful scene in which he descends from the other side to Lynn, who is waiting for him, whom he picks up in his arms and carries to the nearest. He didn't follow Lynn down the hill. Before reaching the point where Lynn disappeared from sight, Benny turned right onto a smaller road. Lynn will be chasing GPS points all day. This, thought Lynn's mother. It's not over yet.